Welcome back, everyone. We're here for another Q&A, and anything that I say is definitely not meant to cure or diagnose or replace your medical care. Check with your doctor before implementing all the things we're going to talk about. And we have a lot of questions to dive in. So, Steve, over to you.
Thank you, sir. What a pleasure. Against Big Pharma is the name of the handle, person from Rumble. What are your thoughts about white fish like pike, carp, or perch that I caught in a lake? The issue might not be that they're not fatty enough. You got any opinion on them fish?
Yeah, they're not fatty enough, but they're still good. But that really depends on the lake that you get them. I mean, the pollution now is just over the top, especially when you get into carp. But you know, it's all just relative to environmental toxicity. And of course, the fattier the fish, the better with the omega-3. But there's other fish have other benefits as well. Good protein.
Good, very good. All right, let's get rid of that question and go on to Armadez from Rumble. What is the best health advice you'd share with a teenager? Sort of general question, but
Learn from the mistakes of the people that are older than you. Like, don't do what I did. So I was kind of you couldn't actually give me a good advice back then because I already knew it all. I was super intelligent when I was younger. And then, of course, when I got older, when I suffered from all these bad health things I was doing, I was a lot more open to making changes. So I would highly recommend you start on the low carb keto, healthy version of the ketogenic diet now, and really take care of it because, man, you could prevent a lot of problems if you start now. Because this is where everyone's ending up in is the end result of poor eating, and there's a delay. There's like a 10 to 15 year delay that you don't feel bad, so your body's compensating. And then one day you wake up and like, what happened to me? So even though you might not feel it, it's brewing in the oven. So I would highly suggest you start now.
all right, very good. Well, let's get our first guest, up on, and this is Eric, and he's got a question for you, Dr. Berg. Go ahead, Eric, with your one question.
Hey, Dr. Berg, how you doing this morning?
Great, thanks.
Great. Hey, I just had some quick questions about choline powder. I listened to some of your videos. Is there any specific powder that I can get? I'm having a hard time trying to find ones with the good absorption rate, or at least a tried and true absorption rate. And so I've checked different companies, and I don't know which ones to start with. I myself have fatty liver. I was diagnosed with it over a year ago. So I'm really wanting to try to get my gut health where it needs to be, starting with my liver. So I just want to see what you thought.
Yeah, that's really smart because choline is one of the things that if you're deficient, you can develop a fatty liver. And even by going on a low carb / additional choline as a supplement, boy, you can take that fat off the liver pretty fast. And so honestly, I use one for years and I kind of stick by it. I'm not saying there's not even better ones, but the one that I use is from Standard Process, the choline from Standard Process.
And is that a powder
I mean, it's
form?
no, it's a tablet. You actually suck on it, and it's actually lemony. It's like a
Oh,
little sour.
oh wow.
Yeah, so you can just suck on those through the day like candy, but there's no sugar in them. But choline has this sour lemon type taste to it. But that's what I would do. But there's probably, equally as good sources out there. I just haven't evaluated them. But I will say that if you're trying to get fat off your liver, you can, if you go on a ketogenic diet and you basically don't allow that liver to convert any more fat into the liver, you can drop 50% of that fat off that liver in literally a couple of weeks. So it can happen fast. And the other thing that's equally good for the liver, if you're trying to get fat off the liver, is that also take a tocotrienol. Tocotrienol is the vitamin E that tends to be a very powerful anti-inflammatory, but it stops the fibrosis because people don't realize when the fat is in the liver, there's a lot of inflammation because visceral fat creates inflammation. And then that vitamin E will counter that inflammatory process so you can slow down the fibrosis, which is the scar tissue that comes along with it. So I think you're on the right track. Add the choline in,
Okay.
and it's really smart. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hey, I appreciate all you're doing from one chiropractor to the other, man. Thank you so much. I
Hey,
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Talk to you
That's
later.
great. Thank you. Okay, get back
Okay.
to those patients, Eric, as I know you will. And thanks for a good call. Let's go ahead with our first quiz question of the day. And Doc, there it is.
True or false? Most yogurt you consume does not actually give you your gut. Actually, give you your gut and additional microbes. Okay, give you. Let me rephrase this. Okay. Most yogurt you consume does not actually give your gut any additional new microbes.
There you have it. All right, audience, climb on it, please, for an intelligent and informative answer. Let's go back to social media. Rao from YouTube. How can someone avoid both glucose and glutamine if they have breast cancer?
It's not easy, but the way that you do it is you go on a very low carb diet. But here's the problem. You need protein, and a lot of different protein sources has glutamine, and cancer does live on glutamine as well. If you look at my website, and I'm not making any claims, I do have a download on there on a diet that you may want to research and look at, because it's actually it's a bit lower in glutamine, and then you're getting a good amount of your protein from collagen sources and things like that. So that's and then but here's the thing with glutamine. I think the way that cancer is set up, it's super super smart. It adapts. So here you are, you're on this diet, and it adapts to surviving through another fuel source. So you have to constantly rotate back and forth. And this is why the most potent remedy or antidote or thing that you could do for cancer is fasting. So that way we eliminate glucose and glutamine. But the problem is you can't do it forever. So you have to do periods of long fasting and then start to eat, and then eat super healthy. And yes, the cancer might get some glutamine, but then you go on another fast and then you add different things to it. You have to attack cancer from multiple angles, because it's almost like it can quickly adapt. It's like this rugged survival adaptation mechanism that can will quickly find ways to survive. So I would watch more videos on that.
All right, here's a
There's
question for you, Doctor.
also a glutamine inhibitor you can get. I don't know if you can get it in America, but there's certain foods that may at least inhibit glutamine. And if I'm not mistaken, and you can verify this, Allison and no, it's in green tea. There's something in green tea that can at least inhibit glutamine to a certain degree. So that's something you can try.
All right, very good. And here's a question for you. Who has a better audience than Dr. Berg? Nobody. These people knock the answer out of the question immediately because they're that smart. Okay, and the question was, true, false, most yogurt you consume does not actually give your gut any additional new microbes. And 78% of the respondents say it's true. 22% say it's false. Pardon my cold today, folks. So any winners with that, Doc?
Yes, it is. It's true. It's true because, but there's some benefits to that yogurt that, so it doesn't necessarily reseed it, but it provides certain things in food for your current microbes that you have. And this is why I always recommend, while you're on an antibiotic, you should be consuming things like kefir and sauerkraut, which have a lot more microbes than regular yogurt. Now, that being said, a good probiotic would be beneficial, something that survives the gut, because when you lose those microbes, they don't always come back to the original pattern that you had. And so yogurt is good, but it doesn't actually reseed the microbes that are killed off.
All right, very good. Let's go to Masha from Facebook. I'm 22, but my hair is turning gray. Wow. And falling out. Is this connected to nutritional deficiency of any kind, or I might add some sort of genetic thing? That's pretty wild.
There is a genetic component part. There is a lifestyle epigenetic thing with stress. but also even copper. Copper deficiency can also cause excessive graying. So, I mean, there's even some reports, I can't tell you the percentage of people getting their darker hair back once they get more on copper. So, something to try.
All right, very good. Let's go to, let's see, Urban Viscous from Rumble. Rumble, it leaves the pack with these wild names. What are your thoughts about a teenager who has high cholesterol levels but normal level of triglycerides?
When you're evaluating cholesterol, there's so much confusion and counter information, especially the type of LDL and the total cholesterol. I don't want to open that can of worms right now, but I will say that one of the best indicators to focus more on is the insulin resistance through a test called HOMA-IR. And even not even worrying about your cholesterol or your LDL if you're going on a low-carb diet. So these cholesterol, this panel that you would take becomes more valuable when someone's a diabetic or they're taking a lot of carbs in their diet, because that's when you have problems. But when you're on a low-carb diet, your triglycerides should come down. So, and your HDL should go up. But it's not as simple as that. There's more to talk about, which I don't want to open that can of worms right now, Steve, because that would be a whole hour lecture.
Wow. Well, at some time. Watch for videos, folks. Okay, let's go to quiz question number 2. And Doc, there it is. Not a true false this time.
Why does eating junk food increase bad bacteria more than the good bacteria?
Okay, audience, your answer, please. Lost but found from YouTube. Are you familiar with Churin Praz? Oh, God, I should have read this first. Churin Praz and its health benefit. It contains over 50 minerals and herbs and gooseberry and reportedly some. Anyway, some. Did I say that right, or does that make any sense? Churin Praz. Sounds like an Indian kind of thing.
No, I'm not familiar with it. I'm sorry.
All right, very good. Terry, why don't you try to spell that out for me phonetically or something? Meantime, let's go to Neelam from Facebook. Which supplements would you recommend for someone with autism, ADHD, and depression? Boy, that's a terrible triad right there.
I would highly, highly recommend you get on silica water, silica supplements over a period of time. Probably sulforaphane would be a good remedy as well, because that's going to reduce neuroinflammation. But the silica binds with, it's a chelator. It'll bind with aluminum. You got to do it over a period of a year. And it might, but I think that's going to be your best bet to actually go into that direction.
All right, here's an interesting question from Patricia at Facebook. I'm very tired every time I break my overnight fast. So in the morning, I eat and then I want to nap. Why do I get so sleepy?
That's a really good question, because, here the person is fasting and they feel great, and then they eat and they go, oh, I feel tired now. What's going on? Well, think about what you just did. You just broke the fast. You just broke deep ketosis. Ketosis is these ketones feeding your brain, and it's a better source of energy. And then you go ahead and break it by eating, and then all of a sudden now you're back to, running on glucose, and that's not the best fuel. So over time, when you start to do this, your cells will become more receptive and more flexible to using different fuels. What this means is you're just not metabolically flexible yet, and that means you can't switch fuels as fast as you'd like. And then it's kind of like your body's telling you, stick with keto. So what you could do is, when you go back to a meal, make sure it's like as low to zero carbs as possible, and then just go longer with your fasting. And I don't really know what you're eating as well, so that could be, if you're going back to donuts, that could be a problem. I don't think that's the case, but I think just keep giving it more time, so you can adapt back and forth. There are things you can do. Apple cider vinegar, it's water, berberine. These are things to speed up the process of that insulin resistance situation.
All right, good luck with that. Chanel Ferlin from Rumble. What would someone, why would someone have an allergic reaction after consuming Reuteri? What should she do next?
I think it could be to the milk, in which case you need to probably make it out of coconut milk. So that's probably what's happening. It's probably the casein in the milk, and you have to change it. Now, one thing you could try to find half and half from A2 milk, A2 cows. It's a different protein. So that's another thing you could potentially try. And I don't know if you can find this, but I don't know if you can get like half and half from goat's milk or sheep milk. I kind of doubt it, but that would be another solution.
Interesting. Okay, well, the audience has a solution to our second question, which asks, why does eating junk food increase bad bacteria more than good bacteria? And 85% of our respondents say because of the seed oils and sugars in the junk food. 10% say it's the high carbs, and 5% it's the antibiotics in the ingredients. What do you think, Doc?
Okay, so the bad bacteria live more on the sugar. Okay. So the good bacteria live more in the fiber and even the mucus layer of your gut. So when you eliminate the junk food, you starve off the bad guys, and then you support the good guys. So this is why one of the most important things to realize is when you eat junk food, you're literally feeding the bad guys, and that's a big mistake because your gut microbiome literally do so much for you. I'm going to create a video on that just to demonstrate that, but I don't even know why we don't even consider it a second very important organ, but it's significant, and you should really eat for your microbes, and they will help you.
Okay, now, Doc, are there any sneaky junk foods that maybe don't like right off the shelf appear to be bad? They're not canned or something. I mean, how do we know what a junk food when it says healthy or, in a cellophane wrapper?
So here's one way you can trick people. Okay, so of course this probably is junk food, right? Pop-Tarts. But look at this is organic Pop-Tarts. So now people are thinking, oh, it's no longer junk food because it's organic. So what you have to do, Steve, is you have to actually read the label. Okay, this is a new concept for Steve. I mean, other people, but when you read the label, it'll tell you the ingredients. So if it has sugar, hidden starch like modified food starch, maltodextrin, and then the seed oils, then we know it's going to be more junk food the more of those you have. And of course, I look at the carbohydrate total, and I want to keep that down as low as possible. So you might want to just eat foods that are whole foods and not in a box. That might be another clue. These are just suggestions, Steve.
All right, very good. I'm going to break out my reading glasses from now on. HT from Facebook. What could be the primary cause of my body producing hives?
So there's a couple reasons. It actually could be something in the gut. It could be an allergy that usually a lot of allergies can create hives. I mean, it could be environmental too, or else just for something you ate, you can break out in hives. So certain foods will overload histamines in the body, and that could be one thing. And really, if you're sensitive to these histamines because you don't have a good microbiome, then you're following my recommendations of eating like vinegar or sauerkraut or nutritional yeast, and then all of a sudden you have these reactions. You're like, wait a second, I thought this is supposed to be good for me, but you're more sensitive to these histamines. So a certain percentage of the population can't do that, so they have to get their body into a state where they can.
All right, very good. Well, let's continue on with some questions. Here's number 3 for the day.
Why are artificial sweeteners so much worse than sugar alcohols? Because in reality, aren't they both artificial sweeteners?
Well, that's a conundrum. Laween Doe from Facebook. I had toxemia. Lost a baby last year. Sorry to hear that. What can I do to have a more healthy pregnancy next time?
Oh my gosh. This is so important. Um, Before you get pregnant, I would really get on a healthy version of the ketogenic diet. Get your body super, super healthy. Why? Because you're about to create this environment in your body to grow a healthy baby. And then while you're pregnant, don't do what a lot of women do, where they're craving ice cream, they're eating ice cream. The doctors don't even tell them not to eat certain things. So I would be super clean. I wouldn't necessarily do fasting, but I would eat super clean while you're pregnant, taking all the key nutrients that you need. Um, and I talk about this. And then also, very, very important, once you have that baby, to breastfeed the baby. Do not do the formulas because it's just more junk food. And then take supplements, especially vitamin D and omega-3 and zinc and trace minerals while you're breastfeeding as well. And that baby should come out super healthy. And the chance of you getting toxemia would be probably less than winning the Virginia lottery.
Wow, that's great and hopeful. We're heartbroken for you, Lowing-Dow. I hope the next one comes out great with this great new diet. All right, let's go to someone else and let me delete that one. How about that? And keep up with the thing. Paul from Facebook, what can you do for a swollen prostate? Ouch.
There's a couple things that can cause the prostate to, and I'm guessing what you're really saying, it's enlarged, because if it's swollen, if there's an infection, obviously that's a whole other thing. But I guess what you're saying, it's enlarged. As we get older, the prostate does enlarge, mainly from estrogenic effects. Now you might say, well, I think it's testosterone, the more powerful form of testosterone, which is DHT. Well, then if that's true, then how do you explain that testosterone goes down as you get older? How can it be testosterone? But the estrogen is the problem. And what people don't realize is that a lot of things in the environment mimic estrogen, like plastics, forever chemicals, pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, fungicides. I'm going to release a video talking about why these chemicals mimic estrogen. Because why don't they just mimic another hormone? Why is it estrogen? So you want to go on a very clean diet and probably not do too much dairy, because some people find when they have more dairy, the prostate swells up a little bit more. I think it's better if you do dairy, do a raw cheese from Europe, a very healthy type of cheese, versus sour cream that is from America that's not organic. Who knows? It might have growth hormones in it and those issues. But glyphosate or glass, which is in the Roundup Ready. I'll show you what that is right here. Maybe cut down on the Roundup Ready by consuming more organic. And also, people don't realize when they do non-GMO, they think that's no glyphosate. But it is, because like when you're doing wheat, they dry out wheat with glyphosate. It has nothing to do with GMO. So the safe bet is just to avoid all grains.
Wow, there you go. Fly with Lace from Facebook. What's better for us, almond or coconut milk? That's a good question.
Coconut milk.
How come?
Almonds have a very high in oxalates, so you got to be careful. And oxalates, a lot of people are sensitive to them, and that can increase your risk of kidney stones. But in reality, oxalates, I think the problem with oxalates have really come from the imbalance of microbes, because there's a certain microbe that we should have that eats these oxalates. But I don't think we have it because of these things called broad spectrum antibiotics.
Okay, let's go to the immediately answered quiz question number 3 for the day. Why are artificial sweeteners so much worse than sugar alcohol? And 88% of our respondents say it's artificial sweeteners have a higher glycemic index. 10% say they make you crave more sugar or carbs, and 2% say sometimes they contain fructose, which can be worse than sugar. There's some intelligent answers, I think.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was called saccharin. There was in 1890 something, a chemist noticed when he had this chemical petroleum on his hand. Somehow he got it in his mouth and it was kind of sweet. He's like, oh, what's this? Interesting. So maybe we can turn it into a sweetener. So artificial sweeteners are actually made synthetically from chemicals. Sugar alcohols, at least they're made from some type of food that are fermented. So they come from more of a natural source, even though some of it's corn, which I don't like. It's a different process. At least it doesn't come from chemicals. So it's definitely a major step in the right direction. But these artificial sweeteners, man, you want to stay away from them. There's some, let's just say, major corruption in the safety studies and how they, Steve, this is the thing that even trans fats, it took 80 to 90 years before they got those off the market. Asbestos, how many years was that on the market? What about smoking? And now we have seed oils. And now we have all these other chemicals. So how the heck do they get on the market? How do they stay there? There's a lot of PR going on to trick people and create little strategies to slow that process so someone can make a lot of money. And I really think the artificial sweeteners are on that track. I also think seed oils are also on that same thing. How can they be heart healthy? The amount of oxidation that these oils go through with the processing, how can you say that they're heart healthy when they're shelf stable? But it's an unsaturated fat. Explain that to me, Steve. Please help me understand that.
All right, let's get down to that. No, you got me onto stevia. So that's not a sugar alcohol, right? Or
No, that's
what
an
is it?
herb.
Interesting.
It's an herbal sweetener.
Well, I would say
Just
for
like
all
monk
those that
fruit.
get hooked on a certain flavor, I was a Splenda guy for many, many years, and you told me to switch, and it really doesn't take long to get your taste buds adjusted to new. In fact, I like it every bit as well, and now, you know,
If you get it, like, this is amazing. You take someone that likes lemonade and you just take an actual lemon, or no, just take some lemon juice and add a couple drops of liquid stevia. I swear it tastes just like sweetened lemonade. So something that you should give your kids, Steve.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they don't listen to me. Jane from YouTube, what are your thoughts about the carnivore diet?
I like it. I like it. I think there's a lot of people are benefiting from it, especially for gut health, but other ways too. So I would, try it out, see if it helps you. But you're going on a severely, I mean, you're going on a very low carb diet, right? And Steve, this is the way I look at it. You know, if you let yourself get all the way to this problem where you have some chronic metabolic disease, right? Like diabetes or something like that, and then you want to reverse it, you're going to have to go on a low carb diet. That's what reverses it. The ketogenic diet is the ultimate in low carb. Now, some people are going to tell you that's radical. Oh, that's just like cutting carbs is radical. Oh, you mean well, how are you going to correct it with a normal moderate diet? You can't. So, and then you have some people that can get away with maybe a balanced diet, even with carbohydrates. Well, that's because they didn't go to the extreme and abuse the body like I have. So they can probably get away with it because they've never developed this metabolic disease. So it really, you got to look at this as the level of effort it's going to take to undo this stuff is going to be a lot more dramatic than trying to maintain your health. Same thing with vitamin D. You can't correct a vitamin D deficiency by putting someone on a moderate amount of vitamin D or what they recommend, 600 IUs. How are you going to correct that? So some of these things you have to increase to create a therapeutic dosage. So, but my whole thought is, I think you should try several diets, see what works for you, and stick with that versus someone tell you, well, based on the research, this is what it says.
All right, very good. Well, we got some interesting questions today, and I'm dying to hear the answer to this.
Okay, what is better for repair after exercise? A cold shower or a hot shower?
All right, audience, climb on that, as we know you will. Let's see. James from YouTube, what are your thoughts about consuming allulose?
I like it. It's not a sugar alcohol, but it's a sugar substitute that's definitely better than the aspartame and saccharin, things like that.
All right, moving along with sweeteners. Julia from Facebook, what are your thoughts about using monk fruit as a go-to sweetener?
I love it.
Wow,
It's great.
Batting 1,000. Okay, let's get rid of her with all due respect. Nikki6 from Rumble. When doing healthy keto and consuming only 30 grams of carbs, can I add a bit more carbs if they contain fiber?
Well, yeah, according to the ketogenic diet, you're talking about a net carb, right? So you're deducting and minusing out that fiber, because fiber does not spike insulin. And this is all about that controlling hormone, insulin. If insulin goes down, your body can then burn fat. If it goes up, your body does not burn fat. So that's really what we're looking at.
All right, Casey from YouTube, can you share any recommendations for a hernia in the diaphragm?
I have a video on this, and I should probably do an updated one, but there's a couple of things that you can do as a manual exercise to literally add more tone, or kind of take the congestion out of the area of your body by pressing up underneath the rib cage on the left and right side of that little piece of cartilage that sticks down. And I show people how to do that in the video. You should watch that, and it'll give you a lot of relief.
All right, Casey, look for that video. All right, and quiz question number 4. Hang on, let's bring it up here. Boy, these are really on it today. It asks, what is better for repair after exercise, a cold shower or a hot shower? And 75% of our respondents say it's a cold shower is better, and 25%, let's go for hot. Who's right?
So there's a lot of benefits in the cold shower. Mental, cognitive improvements, decreased inflammation. But in the repair process, what happens when you decrease inflammation, Steve? We're not talking about inflammation from an injury. We're talking about inflammation from an exercise, in which case the warm shower will probably give you a little more benefit from that. Not the cold shower. However, what would probably even be better than the warm shower is to do alternate cold, hot, because you create this vasodilation, vasoconstriction of the blood flow. So I think the combination is better. But if you compare cold to heat, if you add cold, it does slow down the repair process. And is that what you want to do? Because we're trying to recover from the exercise.
Interesting. All right, Jane from YouTube, can over-exercising create a weight loss plateau?
It does. I know it does, because I've had patients come in. I tell you, there's nothing better than having a lot of people coming in and just seeing what happens with different things. I had this lady come in. She was, I'm not kidding, exercising 6 hours a day, Steve. And she's like, I'm plateaued. I'm afraid that to stop exercise or I'll gain more weight. I'm like, you're overtraining. The ability to burn fat from exercise occurs when you're sleeping, a day or two after you exercise. Well, you're not letting your body have a chance. You're just like breaking down the body, giving it more stress. And that's not the best way to lose weight.
All right. Let's see. Boy, they've been so fast on. Let's go to quiz question number 5. There you are, Doc.
Keeping your calories the same, which one would help you lose more fat? 1 meal a day or 3 meals a day? And remember, we have the same amount of calories.
I have an opinion, and I'll keep it to myself. All right, let's see. Let's go to back to social media. Hashita from Facebook. What is your recommendation to treat IBS and insulin resistance?
I think the most potent, almost bordering on magic remedy is to go in the carnivore for what you just said, because you're going to fix insulin resistance. You're going to also fix your IBS, because you just eliminated a lot of reasons why people have inflammation. Plus, it's high in glutamine. So That would be something, because if you did a typical remedy by taking glutamine, or maybe you took zinc or something to actually heal the gut, while you're putting a lot of fiber in there or other things, I don't think you can get well. So you really have to, when you deal with the gut, you're dealing with um, inflammation and microbes and a lot of things that can irritate the gut. So I will today do a more comprehensive but practical video on the gut. I think that'll be really important because there's so many myths out there, and there's so many things. So easy to fix your gut if you know how.
Wow, well, that's encouraging. Nuaf from YouTube. Why do I regain weight so quickly after going off the keto diet?
Because your body's trying to tell you, don't go off of it. Your body is really giving you a great argument for sticking on the keto. It's like, hello, if you don't stick with this, I'm going to put fat on your body.
Well, and it means it. Patty from Facebook. I've been diagnosed with IBS. Let's see, what is the best way to make your super yogurt? You talked about that last week with a low FODMAP. Super yogurt with low FODMAP.
Okay, so let's talk about this FODMAP. These are certain fibers that people, or certain foods have certain fibers that they increase to in their diet to be able to fix certain GI problems. I may have created a video on this in the past, which I need to delete. I would not worry about the FODMAP. Don't worry about that. You're going to find that if you start doing that, you're still going to get gas and issues. The microbes in your gut ferment fiber. What you need to do is reduce the fiber to the point where there's minimal, if no gas, because we don't want to bloat you out. So to fix GI problems, you want to start lowering this fiber to get less fermentation. Unfortunately, a great majority of the population has what's called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Normally, you should have very tiny amounts of bacteria in the small intestine, and most of it in the large intestine. But when you get SIBO, all of a sudden that bacteria ends up in the small intestine by a factor of 1,000 times more, which now becomes a significant issue. So the Reuteri comes in there and it starts to balance that out. And it's a key microbe to help SIBO. So what I would do if I were you is I would make that cultured SIBO, cultured Reuteri microbe probiotic, and just take small amounts of it. Okay, maybe a teaspoon or a tablespoon, and just take that over a period of time, and then you can gradually increase it, because these microbes will quickly adapt to what you're eating. I mean, do you know how many cycles of microbes, like the microbe divides in your gut, right? And it does it over and over. It keeps dividing, and then it dies and it divides. It's doing it over 1 million times in your lifetime. So you have a tremendous amount of generations of microbes that are constantly also responding to everything you do, how you feel, your environment, the food you eat, the food that you don't eat, and the antibiotics. So you really need to start thinking about, how do I eat for my microbes, and how do I keep the microbes in the right place? So the Reuteri is one of the keys to that.
Okay, very good. Let me try to help somebody struggling in our green room. Mary Ann Dawson, can you hear me? Hang on just a second. Let me see. Go ahead.
Yes, sir, I can.
Oh, good. Well, I don't have time to put you up on the screen, but why don't you go ahead with your question?
No
One
problem.
question for Dr. Berg, please.
Thank you so much. During a fast, I have supposedly hypothyroid, and I'm not taking medications for it anymore. May I take milk thistle and iodine? When I do not take it, my voice gets lower and a little more strained.
Interesting. I think, first of all, you're supporting your thyroid, you're supporting estrogen. You're supporting your
Oh,
liver, which also then helps the balance of estrogen. So I think you're really helping your balancing your estrogen levels and the testosterone levels. So
thank you.
yes, you can take it on an empty stomach. Absolutely, I would do it. My body responds good with more iodine too, because iodine also can help balance testosterone, and because it increases the receptors for testosterone. So, but in females, it's not going to give you more than you need. And by the way, a lot of the estrogen that even females have comes from testosterone. So when you're taking iodine and milk thistle, you're balancing that ratio of hormones. So that's probably why your voice is more optimized.
Thank you.
Sure.
Glad we could get you on, and hope that helps. Thanks for sticking with us there, Marianne. Okay, let's go to quiz question number 5. Marianne, this is for you too, and it asks, excuse me, keeping your calories the same, which would help you lose more fat, 1 meal a day or 3 meals a day? Now, I would say that I'm 50 pounds lighter than I was about 3 or 4 years ago after Dr. Berg told me intermittent fasting. So that's my story. But let's go to the audience. And 95% say OMAD, or 1 meal per day, is superior approach over 3 meals a day. And 5% said 3 meals a day. Now, I don't know if they're all considering that it's exactly the same amount of calories, but there you have it.
So it's really about the we have this variable called frequency of eating, how often you eat. What increases insulin? Carbs and eating. So even people that are not eating carbs but are eating, they're going to stimulate insulin to a certain degree. So every time you eat, regardless of what you eat, if it has any significant calories, is going to stimulate insulin. So the more frequently you jack up that insulin, the more you have problems with losing weight, because insulin is the hormone that locks up the fat. Now, some people ask, what about bone broth? Because bone broth is protein, it's amino acids. Yes, but it's only 35 calories. So it's not nearly as significant as a steak, right? So yes, it's going to stimulate insulin a little bit, but not significant. So should you consume that doing a prolonged fast if you run into problems? I think it's worth a shot. I think it might dip you out a little bit, but it brings you in, but you're still getting some amino acids. It's very satisfying. It also gives you electrolytes. So some people do prolonged fasting with bone broth. And then also, if you look at the research on intermittent fasting for cancer, I think they call it time-restricted eating. There's also a fasting mimicking diet that has also been researched. And that's not a true fast, but it's a lower calorie type thing, 500 calories a day. And that produces a lot of benefits as well. I don't think it's as easy to do, but when you start reducing your calories or having just a little bit of calories, like bone broth, you're still going to get some really great benefits. So that's just a side note. I don't know how I got off track, Steve, but I think I'll stop right now.
That's all right. It's always interesting. Let's go to Igra Munawar. I'm sorry for butchering your name. Sure I did. Hi, Dr. Berg. I have chronic constipation. I have taken betaine hydrochloride with pepsin, TUDCA, and digestive enzymes. My stool still floats and smells bad. Without these supplements, it gets way worse. Boy, what a spot he's in.
So with something like this, it's really hard to figure out, because I would want to sit down with you and ask you a bunch of questions. When did this start? What did you do just before it? How much fiber are you having? What type of diet are you on? And then let's say you're on the ketogenic diet that I recommend with fiber. I might recommend we'll go try a carnivore for a while. See if that helps you. So this is one of those things you're going to have to experiment. And it's hard to figure it out without these additional pieces of data. But typically, we don't want you to have constipation. So in the meantime, maybe you're going to have a herbal laxative to keep things going, because we don't want this auto intoxication problem. That's way more damaging than worrying about, being addicted to a laxative. So you can also try Epsom salts or a magnesium powder. And you might even have to do a magnesium powder that I don't recommend, which is magnesium oxide, because it's a laxative. So, but just enough to get things going. But anyway, these are just things to chew on.
All right. Well, good luck with that. That sounds uncomfortable. Watch It is the person's name from YouTube. Is it beneficial for women to use estrogen cream after a hysterectomy or partial hysterectomy?
I can't tell you to not do it, but I would not. I'm not pro doing estrogen replacement therapy, but I would get with someone that really is up on these bioidentical hormones, like Dr. Richards that I've interviewed recently on testosterone, and find out what would be the best way to give you some hormones if you just don't have the organs to produce them anymore, or do you need to do it at all? I don't know, but I'm not crazy about the estrogen replacement therapy at all. I know there's a lot of side effects to that, so yeah, maybe there's a bioidentical compounding formula you can have. I don't know, but I would work with someone on that.
All right, very good. Prabhath from YouTube. Is it possible to naturally dissolve gallstones?
Yes, it's possible. In fact, if you look it up, they do use bile salts, purified bile salts, to help dissolve gallstones. In fact, I even talked to a butcher that works at a large facility where when they find gallstones in a cow's gallbladder, that's probably the most expensive thing they sell to various companies, because they want those bile salts, because that is a remedy for a lot of gallstone problems. And also, not just that, bile sludge, which actually is kind of like a thickened fluid that gets jammed up in your ducts in your liver, and it can create all sorts of fullness feeling underneath your right rib cage and refer to the right shoulder. I had that for 12 years. I didn't know what it was. So I just needed more bile salts.
I'll be darned. Anticorp from YouTube. What would you recommend for an 18-year-old girl with severe eczema? I'm sorry to hear that, dear.
I would get her out in the sun and get some nice, good sun exposure every single day of vitamin D. I'd also give her a higher amount of vitamin D. I'd probably give her 20,000 IUs of vitamin D3 with the K2, with the magnesium, with the zinc, because that's going to support her immune system, and it's going to support the skin as well. I would say like 90% of going to the dermatology, like the remedy for skin disorders could be resolved with high doses of vitamin D3, like all sorts of stuff. Because what they use as a remedy for a lot of skin problems is prednisone, because there's an overactive immune system. Well, vitamin D in higher amounts is one of the best immune regulators that you could take, and it doesn't have any side effects, Steve.
Wow, that is so great. Well, I'm a big fan of that too, for what it's worth. Eric from Rumble. My wife has a cervical polyp. Her cervix is now closed and needs a procedure to open it. How can she prevent a reoccurrence of this event?
Again, on the topic of vitamin D, vitamin D tends to shrink cysts, polyps, tumors, benign tumors. It's great for cancer as well. So I would start beefing up your vitamin D levels to the point where maybe it just might help that problem go away.
All right, very good. Let's go to Bomac23 from Rumble. Can collagen help strengthen mitral valve prolapse? If so, how much should I take daily?
So there's a lot of different collagen sources out there. And there's some really high quality ones that do a variety of collagen. And that's one I would recommend. And it'll say right on the label how much to take, 1 scoop of this and dissolve it in your coffee or take it in something, water or something like that. But I think it can greatly help that condition. But I can't tell you it's going to cure it, but it's something definitely to support your connective tissue. I personally take collagen. As you age, it's harder and harder to get collagen. And I found that, geez, my nails, my hair, my ligaments, my tendons are just like amazing. But as far as a mitral valve prolapse, you might be missing other things. I don't know. I'd have to do a full evaluation. But I would just start eating healthy and taking a good amount of collagen. Make sure you take the trace minerals, and because those are the cofactors to allow all this biochemistry to work in your body.
Okay, yeah, it's really frustrating. There's a lot of rumor and innuendo going on the internet, and here's an example of that. The person's handle is Your Last Chance from Rumble. What are your thoughts about methylene blue? I've heard it's actually poison to consume.
Well, if I told you methylene blue is a synthetic dye, right, made from petroleum, you're going to probably go, oh, I'm not going to take that. But if I also added some additional information and told you there's a lot of research on some benefits to your mitochondria, because the structure of that compared to red dye or synthetic food dyes is very, very different as far as the structure of that dye. Okay, it's not the same. It's manufactured different. And then if I also added some additional data that it's pharmaceutical grade, which means it doesn't have the impurities and the chemicals that food dye has, because that's food grade, which is very different than pharmaceutical grade. Believe it or not, pharmaceutical grade is cleaner than food grade. Don't ask me why. So, and then you're taking low doses of this methylene blue. It can help you. Now, there are complications if you have too much serotonin, for example. If you're on an SSRI, don't take methylene blue because it's a contraindication. But if you get the full understanding of what it does and take small amounts of it, it can help you if you need it. So, but you're right. There is a lot of false information on this. I just haven't bothered to do a video because I don't know. I've done so many videos on methylene blue, but what I have to say about it is that it's great for metabolic chronic disease. And some people will tell you, oh, that's rare. Like there's very rare to have someone have damaged mitochondria. Well, I think that's not true. I think a lot of people have damage with the mitochondria because they have metabolic syndrome and issues, which means they do need methylene blue because it's more common than not.
Wow. It's yeah, quite a web to travel through. Nair from YouTube, I always get a tingling in my feet and legs and sometimes in my hands too, even if I'm sitting normally. I also have a fast heartbeat all the time. Are they connected, and what could be the cause of Nair's problem?
It could be connected, and I'm always interested in these connections, but I would get on something called benfotiamine because it sounds like you have peripheral neuropathy because that affects the fingertips and the toes. The heart rate also, believe it or not, because benfotiamine is a type of B1 vitamin, so it's a fat soluble one. If you also have a deficiency of B1 because you're eating too many carbs or because you're diabetic, that also can raise the pulse rate. So yes, I think you might be able to kill two birds with one stone with that.
That would be great. Okay, Grace Mann from Facebook, what are your thoughts about the benefits of regular sauna?
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Super healthy. It's like you're adding this hermetic stressor to make the body stronger. And this is why, Steve, I'm getting out the cold bath, which I don't know if you got into yet, Steve, but the cold bath, I did it last year, and it's time to bring it back out and start using it. I like to do the sauna and then do a cold bath. Actually, yes, in that order. That's what I'll do. I don't like doing the cold bath and then the sauna. I like the other way around. It's less painful, but every single cell in your body will say, don't do this. So you really have to talk your body into it and say, no, you're going in, you don't have a choice. And you keep saying that until you just go in and it's like, wow, it worked. I can do this.
Well, I'm every day's in 49 degrees for 5 minutes, and I have gotten used to it, and I love sauna. I go crazy with that every week. I'm a real...
Oh, but not the cold bath?
No, cold bath too. So I do a workout
Okay.
sauna. Then I come home. It only takes me about 10 minutes and go into the plunge for 5 minutes
Okay.
at 49 degrees. Great stuff. Try it, audience. BRLPI 1106 from Rumble. What's the best way for my 29-year-old son to gain weight?
I would stay on the ketogenic diet, but I would add more calories. I would do heavy lifting, and then add a bit more fat to the diet, and probably just do 2 meals a day instead of 3.
Good. Okay.
And also, I want to just also this yesterday I met this 70-year-old who I was talking to him, and I'm like, you don't look 70. You look pretty darn healthy. He basically does sprinting, okay? And just 5 years ago, he was like arthritic, kind of an older man. And then somehow he got into doing sprinting, and someone was coaching him. And I said, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I really think sprinting is one of the best exercises. But I thought as someone gets older, they become like lead, like they're walking around with cement. They lost that spring in their step. He says, exactly, that's what happened with me. But he said, you can get it back in 6 weeks by just practicing sprinting. And I thought that was really great. And it just reminded me that, when you go into agreement with these fixed ideas that you're getting too older, you better just give it up and just, do less. I think you should. I don't think that's a good advice, Steve. I think regardless of your age, you can get that back. And so he literally now competes all over the world in sprinting, and the 440, which is the killer. I mean, I would do the 100-yard or 220, but the 440 is a killer. Can you imagine how strong his heart is if he can do that? So don't go into agreement with all these people that say, you're too old. I think you can train your body at any age, Steve. So definitely do it.
That's very encouraging. Jackie from YouTube, what are the best supplements to resolve brain fog?
The first supplement would be not a supplement, it'd be food. Red meat. Eat some meat, a steak, hamburger without the bun, and your brain will bounce right back. And then let's say you have brain fog after you have this meat, then maybe you want to take other things. Magnesium would help. Glycinate, get more sleep. B vitamin like B1. But I'm telling you, none of those are going to work if you're low on animal protein. So you want to beef that up, Steve, and then that'll help your brain.
All right, very good. Let's help Kelly, if we can, from Facebook. What are the best foods to lower cortisol?
Magnesium foods, but in reality, it's just eating whole, unprocessed, refined foods and making sure you're on a ketogenic diet. That's the best way to lower cortisol, because when you increase your carbs, as in breads, pasta, cereal, crackers, biscuits, waffles, pancakes, muffins, soda, things like that, then what happens is you increase the sympathetic nervous system. And now we activate adrenaline and cortisol. So that's my response, Steve, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Well, I think it was a great response. TMT Master 4000 from Facebook. What can I do to reduce high prolactin levels?
This is another question that there's several things that can cause this, and I would have to get into more of a questionnaire of like, when did you notice this? What are the symptoms? And then have you had a scan by your doctor to rule out a tumor? Especially when you're getting the prolactin. I don't want to give you medical advice on that. So I think I would just probably find someone that's a really good clinical nutritionist that can do a deeper evaluation and get all the data.
Okay, I think we've got a big Memorial Day weekend next week, don't we? So we don't have a show, as I recall. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, we're not doing a show next week, but the following week we'll get right back on it. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.